Hi, I'm Sam here at Rick Jones Pianos with a Kawai 6-foot grand that was built in Hamamatsu, Japan in 1992. It is 6'1", I mean. It's a model NX-40, which isn't particularly well known, but it is our understanding that this is the immediate predecessor to the Kawai model RX-3, which is also 6'1" as long. When we go to tune our pianos here, we'll use a electronic tuning device that will take measurements of 3 different strings in order to get the right tuning for the piano. It's rather complicated to explain, but it will produce 3 numbers. Well, this piano will produce identical numbers to an RX-3, so that tells us that the scale design is identical. So that's the shape of the cast iron plate, bridges, soundboard, and how that determines the position of the strings. And what I find quite remarkable is that each number is 6.7. It's exactly the same, which in technicians' jargon, that means that it's a very well-scaled piano. Just a very even progression of tone across the keyboard. Technicians who use that device like to see a piano that has very consistent measurements, whereas a spinet will be like 24, 3, and 4. 6.7 all the way around. Just a really very evenly scaled piano. They're always a pleasure to work on too. This one tuned up beautifully. I just tuned it. All pins were tight. Everything was super cooperative. My colleagues did a beautiful job polishing, buffing and polishing the finish, regulating it, super smooth, responsive feel. It's just everything that you would want out of Kawai, everything that endears people to Kawai pianos, especially classical pianists. This piano has it. It's a really quite a pleasure to play and very satisfying to play. And as I said, it has musical characteristics that make people like Kawai's. It has a very warm, mellow sound, really no hint of harshness at all whatsoever, which is what Kawai is known for. They're, in my opinion, one of the ways in which they contrast themselves, they engage in product differentiation themselves from Yamaha, is to have more of a mellow sound. Yamaha, their competitor in the same city in Japan, is known for more of a bolder, brighter, more brilliant sound, which works for some music and some musicians, but classical pianists often find that not to be flattering for the type of music they want to play, especially if it's from the Romantic time period onwards, so roughly 1800 to the 1905. So we're talking Beethoven, Chopin, Liszt, Rachmaninoff. That time period, which is quite popular repertoire amongst piano students and piano teachers, oftentimes benefits from a warmer, mellower sound. And moreover, a lot of teachers teach on Steinway pianos in schools, and the more recently made Steinways, in my opinion, tend to have a similar warm, creamy, mellow sound. So if you're a student in that situation and you need to be able to prepare yourself for the teacher's piano in the studio, I think this is an excellent choice. Also, I find it no surprise that Steinway and Kawai have a joint venture called the Boston Piano. It's designed by Steinway and manufactured by Kawai. It, in my opinion, has a lot of the similar musical characteristics. Warm sound, firmer keyboard. This one also has a firmer keyboard. And I think it's no surprise that Kawai chose Steinway to make this the Boston piano, because it, in my opinion, has a lot of similar musical characteristics. And that's why piano teachers often recommend for their classical students Steinway, Boston, Kawai, all very similar in that regard. What I like about Kawai in particular is a really rounded, sweet, very gentle melody range. And that's what I was referring to when I said there's really no hint of harshness in this piano whatsoever. It's a very round sound that I think makes melody sound quite beautiful. since a lot of melodies are in that range. I would call this a 4 on a scale from 1 to 10, from mellow to bright. Definitely mellower than the average piano we have around here, but I would say it's quite typical of Kawai's. And I think it's an especially refined example of that warm, rounded Kawai sound. It reminds me very much of more recent made Kawai RX3s that we'll have in here. This was made in '92. I think the RX3 and the RX series in total, if I remember correctly, it came out in '94, '95. I think it was '95. So this was just before they introduced that. It reminds me a lot of that, most likely because it's the same design as the RX3. And the touch I mentioned is firm. I'll call it a 6 on a scale from 1 to 10, from light to firm. It's super smooth, super responsive, and the keys, in my opinion, bounce back up to a ready position very quickly because of the way Kawai designs their actions, the way the springs are configured, the way they're meant to be regulated. The key, in technician jargon, the key stays in contact longer with your finger as you're, playing the keyboard, and oftentimes very, very fine, rapid movements, like the Mozart piece I played. Having the key top remain in contact with the finger during those little noodly parts, that gives the pianist more information about how the keyboard is behaving. And that's a large part of what I mean by responsive, and which I've talked about in so many videos in this website before. It's just, the piano keeps up with you, basically. And it's something I've noticed particularly on Kawai Grands, and this has the same characteristic. It keeps up with you, and it's responsive. So that's a large part of what I mean by saying that it's a very satisfying piano to play. This piano is, like so many Kawai Grands, quite responsive and satisfying, and I think it's an especially good example of its kind. So, 4 and 6 for tone and touch. The piano does also have a middle pedal sostenuto. Every RX series I've ever seen has one. Every NX series, when we get them in, has one. Press down notes on the keyboard, press the middle pedal down. Only the notes you selected while depressing the middle pedal would be sustained. Now, and one more thing, it does have an original Kawai bench. This is a hardtop bench, which came with Kawai's when they were new. Made in Japan, it's good quality. We've polished it to make it look nice. Opens up the store music. If you prefer, we can include a padded bench instead of this, but we thought this hardtop Kawai bench would look quite nice with the piano. It's not what came with it, but we had it in our inventory, and it's in good condition. It's a quality, well-made bench. And of course, like everything else we sell in our inventory, it has a 10-year warranty, all parts and labor, and 100% lifetime trade-up guarantee. Just please make sure to have it in tune twice a year and kept away from extremes of humidity. Doing so will ensure the longevity of the piano, particularly of its wooden components, which you don't want to be exposed to changing humidity that will crush the fibers of the spruce, especially of the soundboard, but anything else too, if it gets too humid, and then when it gets dry again, that opens up cracks, and that's what causes cracked soundboards in pianos and other components to fail. So that's crucial for maintaining a piano. We ask that you do that, please, for whatever piano you purchase from us. And if you wish, you can return to us at any point in the future and trade this piano in precisely for the instrument sales price, or any other piano if you should choose a different piano. That's what we mean by 100% lifetime trade-up guarantee. I don't think you'll find a whole lot in our inventory that's going to be substantially nicer than this, unless you maybe go for a larger Yamaha or Kawai, like a 7-foot model, or if you really want to go to a Steinway Grand after this, like a Model L or A, 5'10" or 6 feet long. But Kawai's, they're workhorses. They're really, in my opinion, very well-made pianos, very thoughtfully designed pianos. So that makes it easy for the technician to service if anything should go wrong. And we get really good results when we service these pianos. And we expect that you'll be able to keep this piano for a very long time, well beyond the 10 years of the warranty period, perhaps many decades, just so long as you take care of it. And you won't feel a need to trade in unless you just want to in the future. So you have the option that you don't have to take, but it is available. Please stop by, try it out for yourself. You can play it or anything else in our inventory. But if you can't make it, you can always give us a phone call or send us an email if you have any questions.